Hello, Shelly.
Hi.
Welcome back to my
Thank you.
channel, which is a little sparse at the moment. It needs content, so people are probably very glad to see you.
No,
Oh, they're like,
no, they're not
nice,
glad to
the
see
one
me.
time.
They're glad to see you. That's who they're glad to see you. They're not glad to see me.
Why, I mean, the coming of Shelly means that there's a video on the channel. The ushering of Shelly. But this one, we have the flops or the wrong.
Yeah, they're just wrong.
I
Oof.
panicked last video and we didn't have a rhyming scheme
We
thing for tops and
didn't
flops, so I was
we
like, the
didn't
right or
have
the
something
wrong.
cute.
Yeah, alliteration failed me.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
so these books are just wrong, which, to be honest, fit my grouping of these books, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Shelly is gonna go from least crap to crappiest. Mine
Yes.
are a little harder to do because I dislike them all and quite a bit, but I'll try to
Okay.
do something like that. Like least offensive to most, I guess, upon my sensibilities. Like they have assailed me by different increments in different ways.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, do you want to start? Because you
Um,
have three horrible books in a row. Like they're all bad.
I have three. I don't have four.
No, three. That's what I said. Three. I
Oh,
said three, and then I
oh,
put up four fingers, and then
oh,
three.
okay.
You have three. No,
Okay.
no, no. I meant because you have like the books that will, that offended you.
Right. Yeah. So
Mine
I'll
weren't offensive. I had, they weren't offensive. Go ahead.
the least annoying, I guess.
Okay.
And the one I can gripe about the least because I was reading them specifically because they were trash is
Okay.
Battleground is what it's called. The Dresden Files number 17 by Jim Busher. So I went
Number
through all of
17 of
them.
anything.
Yeah, it's a nice bookend because both of them fail grades, like the first book was 2 stars, this book 2 stars. If I hadn't finished it, it would have been a 1 star. It came close sometimes, but um yeah, the really annoying thing about this is that the Battlegrounds and Peace Talks, the book previous, are sort of like a duology that didn't need to be a duology. Like they're
Okay.
very padded and they kill off a character that I really liked for very stupid reasons. And once again, most of the problems that are occurring are like have a thin underbelly of misogyny about them because it's like women are causing them, or the complications to the impetus of the problem is via women once again. Like he just
Because we're the
seems to,
problem.
he just
Oh, I
can't get
see.
away from this, like and to be clear, I guess he's very like overt about people calling the main character Dresden a chauvinist quite often, but the problem is that like the actual fiction sides with his point of view quite often, even though it's like a first person's perspective of him telling it. So you could make the argument that it's like, unreliable and biased because it's how he see things. It's
Hmm.
still how they say what they do is aligned with that like undercurrent of misogyny. And like, yeah, I would say out of all of these books, 75% of them start with a complication caused by a woman, basically. Like it's maddening. It's actually maddening. And of that, usually it is one woman in particular, as it is with the very first book. With
Okay.
like Karen
Really
Murphy,
selling me on this.
the main character, I guess you could say. Like she's the first person that's introduced in the first book and is like the main, buddy, and turns into like a will they won't they situation that's not something I care about.
Mm,
And so yeah, it's
lovely.
just never like undeniably he becomes like a better writer from first book to seventh book, which is great, but he has real big problems with not being very good at doing female perspectives, or
Um,
I think thinking critically about how he's building the plot out. But yeah, so it remains from first to 17th straight up fantasy trash.
okay. Well, I guess it served what it was promised to serve, right?
Well, I don't think it wants to be fantasy trash, but yeah. Like
Well,
I don't think it was just like, okay, I'm gonna go for badly written.
it's not like he was like, this is the literary masterpiece, though.
No, it's definitely like from the get-go trying to appeal to certain audiences with yeah, like it's still Akotar for men, basically, a court of roses and thorns.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, mine was Alias
Oh,
Grace. Yeah, by Margaret Atwood. This
and it's a
wasn't a
flop.
total fail. Yeah, this wasn't a total fail. I wouldn't say it was like the worst book ever. It's about, I don't know. Okay, I'm like, it's about Grace, Grace
Yeah.
Marks. Okay, Grace Marks is suspected or um convicted of being a part of a murder that happens to, it's set in like, I don't know, the 19th century, so the early 1800s. And so she's, you know, taking care of the house. She's like a housekeeper, I guess, or like helping the housekeeper. And yeah, anyways, there's some murders that happens, and the whole book is hinged on whether you think that she was actually conscious during this, like her helping out with the murders, or if she is just pretending to have feigned unconsciousness, or like having, maybe she has a double personality, maybe like, I don't, like, you're not really sure um what at what point she is, responsible for being part of this murder. And what I just didn't find this very satisfying. I don't know. I just like, I kind of you kind of get to the end and you're sort of like, huh, really? Like, really? Really?
Yeah. Well,
I don't
Atwood
know.
can't fill in that much too because it's a historical piece, right? Like it's based on real life events in Canada. And then she
Yeah.
fictionalizes it to some degree, but yeah, as far as I remember, she doesn't try to complete the tale, like from hell or whatever, where it's like this guy did it. Instead, she works
Oh,
within the confines of the information known about Alias Grace, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, yes, I didn't read like the author's note or anything about it, but that makes sense to me, but it's still rendered as not very satisfying. Like, you could sort of, it's left open. And I realized, I think through reading this, I don't like books like that.
Hmm.
Like, I want something to sort of wrap it up. And she wraps it up in a way, but not in a way where your main questions were answered. And so I
Yeah.
was just kind of like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And you can say, like, because she said this earlier on in the book that, you know, this is how it played out for sure. Like, so I think some people maybe have more confidence that, but Margaret Atwood never is like, okay, now here's what really happened. And I think that that's what I wanted. I wanted her to be like, come on, I'm going to share something with you. Now, this is how it really happened. And since we don't have that moment, it just like, it kind of was like, you're left sort of questioning. And I didn't like that. And especially since this was not a short book. This was like, yeah, 465 pages of like rather relatively like small font, and it's slow moving, and you're like, but I don't know, there was just some, I don't know, it was just not what I liked. And I think
Yeah.
I'm reading another book that it reads kind of like this, like you're not sure if a character, but I'm pretty sure she gives you the answer at the end. And I think that that will just make me a lot happier than this
Yeah.
did. So, anyways,
So
not
yeah, because Alias Grace, basically all the things that you would learn from that book, you could read an article on the crime of the things known and get all that information, and
I
you
mean,
would
it
have
was,
no other information would be given, right?
yeah, but like Grace is telling, like, in some, Grace is recounting her story.
Yeah.
She was my favorite part of the whole thing, but then it meanders to other sections. So I mean, she does fill in because you don't have that much of, but yeah, I guess in a way you could read an
Yeah.
account and it would give you the same bones as this does. But I mean, in a lot of ways, it was really engaging. It just, like, again, I just was like, at the end of it, I was like, I don't like that. Actually, I dislike that so much that I was like, I think I might get rid of another book of Margaret Atwood's without having read it. Yeah, like that's
Penalized.
how I feel. I know that's how I feel. I was just like, I don't want to read books that aren't satisfying. So yeah. Anyways, what's your next one?
My next one, yeah, it's hard to rank these because I dislike them both quite a bit. I think the
Of course.
least crappiest, I guess, I would have to put The Man Without Qualities by Robert Musil, because at least you know going into it that it's unfinished. So it's like it's the like harder to put the onus on him, because you're like, he didn't want it published anyway. Right? You're like, so you can't be like, you're an asshole for publishing this. But very clearly, like, this is one of those books where a man who is writing it shows his whole ass like all the time. Like, he makes very declarative statements about how women are and their nature,
Oh,
generalizing them, and is, just completely wrong, all of the time. Basically, like, he has very, yeah, stupid observations, basically, and then he extrapolates what he wants with his motivated thinking, and then makes the women act like that, basically. Like, there's an undercurrent again of misogyny in it that runs
oh, weird.
straight through it. It also is like weirdly meanders into moral relativism that is always, for some reason, in European books especially, becomes like sexualized, right? Where like they're like, relativism, that's pretty, interesting,
Hmm.
because society creates its morality, and so, it always sort of meanders into like taboo bedroom things as well, like as if they're trying to interrogate that, but in a insufficient way. There's no plot. The characters just like, it's one of those books that really bothers me, and I might actually do a video on it. It bothers me so much, where the author doesn't respect the medium that he's working in, where the fiction is undermined constantly, such as
Hmm.
another book like The Brothers Karamazov does this, where it'll be two people having tea, and they'll describe like the meal that they're having or whatever, and it'll be like, I'm having a crumpet and some, Russian tea thing that I've described for a paragraph. And then it launches into an entire chapter of this monologue that the character has that would take a day for them to spout. And then it's the end of the chapter, and it's been, the end of them eating a crumpet, and they're going to go on their merry way. Like, it's obviously a vehicle for them to just regurgitate crap that they
Hmm.
have in their brain, whatever point, like the idea book.
Hmm.
And at that point, I'm just like, why is this even fiction? Like, why are you working in this medium at that point if you don't even care about the story? You don't care about time. You don't care about place. You're just trying
Hmm.
to make people say things, and that's all it is.
And it
And
tends to have a philosophical bent to it too,
yeah, it's very
right?
philosophical, and
Right.
it's because it's
For both of the
going into
books.
moral relativism. There's no answers anyway. So it's maddeningly annoying, because the characters are quite unlikable because of the moral relativism, and because of the undercurrents with misogyny, and very little actually happening, and them just, yeah, throwing word vomit stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It just undermines everything that fiction is, in service of this guy wanting a mouthpiece, basically, on the page. And it's true that it's unfinished, but I don't even know why it was published, to be honest, like, other than they wanted some
Ew.
money, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sounds
but
terrible.
the writing,
And
the
it's like
actual
1600
prose,
pages or
yeah, like 17, 1800, something like that,
oh,
in
that's a
two
lot.
parts. I did it on audio, thank God. The prose were pretty good. It's I described it as digestible and completely forgettable.
Weird. It's
Hmm.
strange. Interesting. Well, I think you had worse reads this month than I did.
I still have one more.
I know. Well, the one that I didn't like so much was Saint
St.
Joan
John. Hmm.
by Bernard Shaw. Now, Bernard Shaw is a Nobel laureate for literature. he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I thought it was for St. Joan, but I think his more notable work, which is what I really should have gotten, I got this secondhand and I was like, oh, I should read that. You know, it looks good. It's a Penguin classic. I was sucked in by the
Of
publisher.
course.
Of course, I know I do love my Penguin classics. And I was like, oh, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So I'm going to, let's do it. And then I realized later on, actually this month, while reading this, that his more notable work is Pygmalion,
Oh
which
yeah, I think
is,
I've heard of that.
yeah, which is the story behind, or the story that inspired the movie My Fair Lady.
Oh.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and so that's like his most notable work. So this was just, it was the story of Joan of Arc, and like it's kind of everything that you would expect. It's a satire, and so it has some comment. This play is a satire
Oh.
on Joan of Arc, so there's some commentary and critiques on the church and government and the politics behind it all. Like, what are we going to do with Joan? And they're like, well, the church doesn't want to be responsible for her death, so we're just going to kick her out, and then the government's going to take over and kill her, and just so it was interesting to a point, but there was nothing that really like surprised me or intrigued me about it, and so I just kind of was like, nah, that was fine. It was just kind of I don't know, like a book that I'll probably end up forgetting, to be honest. So not my favorite, and now I just want to read his more notable work, Pygmalion. So yeah. Anyways, what's your next one? That was short and sweet for me.
My next one I finished fairly recently with Mark Nash. I snuck it just in under the
Oh,
line. The Glamour by
nice.
Christopher Priest. I had read The Prestige, which is
Mm-hmm.
adapted into the movie. But I thought the book was even better. Like it was just really exquisite and good, and even more layered, interestingly, than the film, which is multi-layered in itself. It has like multiple timelines going on, and then the book has an additional timeline.
That's so cool.
um, this, however, and Mark Nash had read the Affirmations, which he thought was excellent. So we were like, let's pick up, another priest. And I was the one that picked this one, so it is kind of my fault. But I chose based on price. This was just the cheapest one that I could get out of the two. But yeah, this is
Well, no
another
wonder it was
book
cheaper.
that will be possibly in that video that I'm contemplating, where it does not respect the fact that it is fiction. Like, it undermines the medium and what it's working. It purports to be something that it is not. Ostensibly it is about a man who wakes up in a hospital after a car bomb has struck him, and he has amnesia. He doesn't remember the event, nor, like, I want to say like 6 months before that or something. It's a bit of time. And from there, a woman named Sue shows up and claims to be like his former lover, though they broke up, and they uh get in touch, whatever the word that I'm thinking of. And their stories like unfolding in that way. So there's multiple perspectives. It goes from what he remembers to what she remembers to after the amnesia, and then kind of like rounds up, except literally none of it matters. Like, literally all of the stuff that you think actually matters and what the conflict is about is undermined in a twist that is very lackluster, and from a meta perspective does not matter at all. Like, it
Hmm.
just it landed with a flop. It's really strange because on Goodreads it's highly rated. People seem to have really liked this little twist thing. There's
Yeah.
a very graphic rape scene that, again, doesn't even need to be present in order to make the point that the author is trying to make. And yeah, it's just vaguely misogynistic, again, to one of the characters. Well, the only character, really. It's pretty much just Sue and this guy and one other person. And yeah, but it doesn't even matter who the other person is, because none of it matters. It's all stupid. It's all stupid.
So you didn't like the book.
Yeah, it was not good. I was close to rating it 1 star despite having finished it, which means it's like really irked me. But I did
Fine.
give it 2 stars because I finished it because I was being magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was being me.
You were being yourself.
Yes.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, this was the month for bad books. The book that I wish I could get my time back for, truly, like it was so bad. It was We Were the Mulvanies by Joyce Carol Oates, which you knew that I would talk about. This
You
is
have
like
mentioned that you disliked it.
multiple times, multiple times. This was my first Joyce Carol Oates, and it was wretched. It was terrible. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna be kinder to it. I'm gonna be a little bit kinder to it.
Yeah.
Because there were times where you could see that she was a really interesting author. Like she could write an engaging scene, and it wasn't like the characters were offensive or anything like that. Um, but I don't know. She wrote very weak women, like very, very weak women. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say basically that so in the family we were the Mulvanies. Something happens with one of the daughters, and it breaks the family apart, or it sort of sets in motion the family for the rest of their lives. And I just thought that it really like it was kind of bleak and sad, but like not in a way where you're like, oh yeah, like it's so thought provoking, and I'm gonna like it just like I felt trapped by the book. I was like, I'm still reading this. Like I'm still reading this mess of a thing. And like you check in with the family throughout their lives. And you know, but I don't know. I think what irked me the most was just like it was just like the women in it. It was just like I really wanted the women to eventually exhibit some strength or to, to like inspire some hope. And it was just like it just didn't happen. It never happened.
Hmm.
It was kind of like women from the like this is what how we write women from the 90s. And it just had that feel to it. It's just I don't know, there's something wrong. It was just off. It was bad, really bad.
Maybe instead of misery May, it was misogyny May that we went through.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like it's just at one point it was just like I don't believe this happened. Like I'm not buying in to the pain of the characters, to the struggle of the characters. I don't really care anymore. Like the family I never really loved to begin with, and now we're watching them fall apart, and it's not really that entertaining because it's happening so slowly. It was just like, just get away from me. Get away from me. It was terrible. It was just not good. It was just not good. And like I was just like at the end of it all, it was just like, really? All right. Like that's cool. I mean, even when good things were happening, I was just like, you couldn't pay me to care. I didn't
Yeah.
care.
And you read
Yeah.
that with Anita, who similarly was not
Oh
about
yeah,
it,
we were
right?
just like
Yeah.
she was like I was muttering to myself as I was turning the pages because we just like it was just like everybody was just kind of hateable. Like you just didn't the guys were creepy. Like there was not a good guy in this book for the most part. And then the guy that does, of course, he's the savior. He saves a woman. I'm like, a woman can save herself. Thank you very much. Like, doesn't need a man. I was just okay. It was rough. I did
I
not like
guess
this.
she had maybe her feminist glow up after the fact. Because I think she's famous
One can
for
only hope.
writing some like feminist stuff. Like she has that like really blunt one that it was like rape a romance story or whatever, and it was all about like how it's like obviously not romantic, like it's ironic title, and she has like
I think
yeah, I
she's
don't
got a
know.
lot to say about sexual assault, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that she studied or has helped shape the conversation. But at this point, at least in this moment in time, it's like we all know this. It's common knowledge. Although I'm sure if it was the first time that I had ever read something that portrayed sexual assault in the way that it did, I think I would have been surprised. But at this point, I'm just like, we all know, we all know that an assault like that, or a sexual assault in general, is nuanced, and plays out in different ways and it affects people in different ways. And yeah, I just think it was just like a non-nuanced portrayal of what could happen after some sort of assault, is what I'll say. Sorry.
Maybe
Sorry, not
this,
sorry.
maybe I might title this Misogyny Me.
Yeah, yeah, you should. You should, yeah, you really should.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll be looking forward to your title now that you know
Feminist
mine.
mayhem.
Well, thanks for coming on the channel.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.
Bye.